you are going to see a lot of these shadow defaults that are going to actually turn into real defaults and then a foreclosure crisis. But it's not being registered as a default because the banks are allowing negative amortization. But the problem with this is very simple. So right now where I'm stood is in the heart of where this development is going, and I want to show you just how far this development is going to stretch. So the camera really isn't going to do it justice, but literally all the way to the hill in the background there, they are going to be developing this area, which is literally the entire length of South Calgary, and the amount of development that is going on is just baffling. And this community that I'm in right now is actually quite a prestigious community. Homes here are actually quite expensive for Calgary. You know, you're talking about these lakefront homes behind me. These are going to be bubble buyers that bought for possibly $3 to $5 million, which is just insane when you think about it, guys. $1 million. That is an insane amount of money. At 20% down, you could use that down payment and buy other investment properties in other countries which cash flow for over 10%, and you could buy them in cash. You wouldn't even have to get a mortgage. So the amount people are paying for real estate here, it makes absolutely zero sense. If you think about one of these listings, which is about $1 million in this neighborhood, right now their mortgage payment is going to be around $5,500 if they have a 20% down payment. And then on top of that, the property taxes here is around $500 a month. So that's $6,000 a month in carry costs for the home. And then on top of that, the problem is that you can only rent out these houses for around $3,500, and that will take you a long time to find a tenant because you're looking for somebody who's got a lot of money. Those type of people are hard to find. So you're going to find it extremely hard to actually get a tenant here, and that presents a huge problem for people when they start getting into trouble, because it's not just going to be the poor that are affected by this recession, it's also going to be the rich people as well. It's all kinds of people that have these high amounts of debt. It's not just poor people. Believe me, these houses, they're that price because of debt. They're not that price because people are coming here and buying in cash. Is this going to be one of those communities that never gets finished? Because a lot of the people, they are going to be absolutely screwed, and they're already screwed by what is happening with interest rates because they bought in 2020 and in 2021. This community is packed with bubble buyers and FOMO factories. People have got into the market here expecting that interest rates are going to remain low, and now their payments have shot up in many cases. I mean, we only have to use simple probabilities to work out that a lot of people who bought in 2021 and of course in 2020, they were actually buying using these variable rate mortgages, and they've seen their payments rise, and they're essentially shadow defaulting right now, which essentially means they can't even afford the interest on their mortgage right now. So they're actually defaulting on the mortgage by not even paying the interest or the principal on it, but it's not being registered as a default because the banks are allowing negative amortization. But the problem with this is very simple. With allowing people to do that, people are digging themselves further and further into a hole. Let me explain it to you simply this way. If somebody buys and they buy at $1 million, they need a 5% appreciation to get out of that house at break even. So if they haven't even got that, if prices have gone down, and then on top of that, they're adding to their loan balance, what does that mean when they're forced to sell because of job loss or because of business income that's lost? And that's exactly what's going to happen, guys. You are going to see a lot of these shadow defaults that are going to actually turn into real defaults and then a foreclosure crisis. And really, you only have to think about the simple math of the cost to carry versus its rent range, something my buddy Scott Walters talks about almost constantly on his channel, and check out his channel, that's a shout out for him as well. And the thing is, when you think about it, it is really that simple, because if you've got somebody who's bought a house here for $1 million million. Their cost to carry with just property taxes and the mortgage payment, just those two things, is $6,000 a month. And then they can only rent that thing out for $3,500 a month. They're at more than a 40% deficit, aren't they? So those people are absolutely screwed. And it means if they lose their job, they can't rent it out because they would be losing money. And if you've lost income, you're not going to be able to afford to lose 30 to 40% of the amount that the house is costing you to carry. So those people are absolutely screwed. They're then forced onto the market. And if their loan balance has then grown, then what else is that going to mean, guys? I mean, I don't think you have to be very smart to work out where this is heading. And you know, you can see the development that's going on. It's going on for like 20 kilometers that way. And this is all around Calgary as well. And you know, I really want to buy a drone, but they're quite expensive, guys. Thinking about buying one just to show you the scale of this thing, because it is quite frankly unbelievable the amount of development that is going on in Calgary. All the communities that have been approved now to build, it's just absolutely massive. I mean, essentially you'd have to have the Calgary population nearly double over the next 5 years for that to make any sense whatsoever, and that's just not going to happen. And in a recession, you see all these immigration trends that you've seen happen reverse, because right now we have a very healthy labor market, and even right now it's not that healthy. I mean, people are moving to Calgary and it has the highest unemployment rate in Canada. Where does that make sense? The reason why people are moving here is because they want to buy a home. People are that emotional and that desperate about buying a home that they will move to the city with the highest unemployment rate in Canada, with the shakiest labor market in Canada, that will be one of the worst cities affected in the recession in Canada, and they're just hoping. It's just pure hope and desperation. And we see these emotions play out all the time, and it doesn't end in a good place. And you know, this prestigious community that I'm in right now, it's a master plan community, mahogany lakes, and cost to buy a place here just does not make sense if you're actually an investor. If you're actually taking your money seriously and investing it wisely, it just makes zero sense. So we can safely say that the people who are buying all these houses here are complete fucking idiots. And I don't say that lightly, guys, because you know, if you're buying this cash, then you're a complete clown. If you're buying this with 20% down, you're still a complete clown. You've only got to think about the yield curve inversion that's happened and the predictability of that yield curve inversion right now. All this frothiness that is around us right here in the real estate market, it's pure FUD. It's going to end in an absolute disaster for people who pull the trigger and buy homes right now, because they're just not accepting the risk of what they're doing, and they're not thinking it through logically. They're not thinking about the rent range, the cost to carry. Because here's the thing, guys, I really have no problem with people going to buy. What I have a problem with is people buying based off their emotions and not acknowledging the risks of what they're doing. Essentially, if you go to buy and the rent that you can get for the place that you're buying is more than your cost to carry, then I don't really see a problem with that. I think you're pretty safe in the event a recession happens. Even if rents pull back, even if you lose your income, you can just rent the place out. But the problem is, guys, it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in Calgary, Vancouver, Toronto, Montreal, it's all the same story of the fact that when you buy a place, you cannot rent it out for the amount that you're buying it for. You can in places just across the border in the United States. That's what makes me laugh so much. For example, in New York, just across from Ontario, you can easily cash flow a rental and make between 10 and 20%. So we know the product of why people are buying homes and speculating in the housing market. It's not for anything fundamental like an actual real estate investment. It's just people are speculating on the future price growth because of the recency bias. And we know where this ends, because a bubble was built like exactly like this in 2008 in the US. So I think it's really dangerous what we're going to see happen here, and I think it's going to be absolutely crazy. People aren't going to believe it. There's going to be tons of people losing homes, and people are going to have to come to the reality of the fact that they could never afford that home in the first place, and they were borrowing money from a bank and they were living on borrowed time. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, you might like this video here. You might also like this video video here. Thank you for watching, and sign up for my free email list, which will be in the description and the pinned comment. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.